From the age of 24 to the age of 34, I was one of those drug addicts that just woke up thinking, where am I going to get my next hit? By the age of 33 years old, I had already 2 daughters. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, on my daughter's 4th birthday, I robbed the store for one more hit. I got arrested, and I made that infamous call. He was on his way to prison for the rest of his life. And here's how that call went. He said, babe, that's a drug addict for you. Still calling her babe. Watch it when they call you babe. I really messed up this time. I'm not coming home. And the next thing David heard was this little voice that said, Daddy, Daddy, today was my birthday. And you weren't here. Are you coming now? David wanted to die, but listen to me, folks. That day, his whole world came crumbling down on him. And there was nothing he could do. He was hopeless. Have you ever been hopeless? Has your world ever come crumbling down on you?
Orlando Salinas is a very powerful testimony in our church. He was announced as an evangelist out of Tucson. Has a ministry called Choose to Change, where he's able to go in and speak to parolees as they're on their way out. They make a choice whether they want to go to AA or to Choose to Change, which is a program that he has here in the church where he challenges those men. Because he's been to prison for 13 years, he's really able to relate to these men because of that ministry. Today, we probably have about 25 to 30 of those men. Some of them are already preaching.
I started coming to Choose to Change. I met Orlando at the parole office when I got out. Started serving in the church and Choose to Change. 7 months ago, God restored my family.
So I go into the class, and the first thing Orlando says, I'm looking for men, and I want to challenge them. He spoke truth, and that's what I needed. I understood that if he could do it, I could do it. It was a battle between my wife, because she was a full-blown Catholic. But little by little, God started moving. She started coming to service more and more. I am called to preach. One day, I will be out there.
My daughter, Andrea, she was the one that was 4 years old when I robbed the store. When she got married, she gave me a letter, how she had forgiven me for everything that I'd done. And my daughter, Andrea, married a pioneer pastor. And it's a miracle that God has done in our lives. My whole family is involved at the Door Christian Fellowship in McAllen, Texas. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for coming, guys. I really appreciate you being here tonight. I wanted to share my story with you tonight because I don't think I've ever really done it in full like I usually do it. I get to share my story all over the world. I want to thank you for being here. Those of you watching online, thank you for being here. And I want to be able to share as much as I can with you tonight. So I'm just going to get right into it. I just want you to know that what I'm about to share with you is I want you to start thinking about what's possible for you. What's possible in your life. Because I want to share my story called A Dead Man Walking, how I went from being a loser drug addict to being the founder and the CEO, business owner, entrepreneur, international speaker. And I wrote a book about it. The story I'm about to share with you is in this book. And the reason I'm telling you that I'm a successful entrepreneur, business owner, international speaker, and that I wrote a book, that's all the good stuff. And for many people, that's overwhelming when they hear that. Unless you've wrote a book, you're successful, and you see, more successful people than myself, whatever. But if you were like me, and you come from where I come from, that's like, man, how do you do that? I want you to start thinking of believing in the impossible. Did I spell that right? It doesn't look right, but I want you to start thinking about believing in the impossible, because I want to talk to you about hope tonight. I want to talk to you about what is really possible for you. What is really possible for you? Let me show you a few pictures of the story I'm about to share with you. I just wanted to show you, a lot of times part of my story that I got shot, a lot of times when I go and share my story around the world, I get to preach in different churches. I have a suit on, and it's hard, I think, for people to understand or believe that a man like me, that actually as bad as I say I was, or that I actually went through the things that I went through. And I just brought a little bit of proof for you. And my story, you're going to hear that I got shot at 9 times. This is the truck I got shot at in Baytown, Texas. I was trying to rob some cocaine because I was a drug addict. And I went to a place where a drive-through, that's where you buy drugs at 24 hours a day in the streets. And I was trying to steal drugs. They pulled a gun out on me. They put it on my head like this, and another guy tried to take my money from my hand, and I'm holding the gun like this, and I'm like, man. And another guy puts a hand in my steering wheel because I was in my truck sitting down, and my truck was on. My truck was standard, so I put the clutch in while I waited for my drugs, but drugs didn't come. Again, a gun came to my head. Another guy grabbed my hand. Another guy tried to turn off my truck, and he turned off my truck, but what saved me was that my truck had this little button. Who's had a car like that? That you have this little button that you have to push so that the key can come out. That saved my life. And I'm holding a gun like this. And man, he wasn't able to take it off. I turned on the truck and I took off. All I heard was boom, 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 a 9mm. There's 9 bullet holes in that truck. 2 of them hit me. One in the spinal cord, one in the buttocks. I'm like Forrest Gump. The doctor said that the one in my spinal cord hit me right in my spinal cord. It didn't penetrate enough, just enough to bleed, but not enough to hurt. He said, had it penetrated, I would be paralyzed. I could have been dead. But we don't think about that when we're young, right? Or when we're high, But the only reason I'm here is for the same reason you are. You all want to guess what that is? The grace of God. That's what's that called. You can call it whatever you want. Some people call it luck. I call it the grace of God. That's what I call it. And I just wanted to show you that picture. Next picture. I was very young when I had ruined my life and I escaped from the county jail. Well, I tried to. As you say, it says, Edinburgh man indicted for escape attempt. So, hey, I tried, and I ran from the courtroom, from the courthouse. That's why today they have all kinds of, they bring you, because they didn't used to do that. And I ran. Have you ever felt like you wanted to run from life problems? Well, I know I did. For that, they gave me 20 years for that. Next picture. That's when I first got my first trip to prison. I went twice to prison. I was 20 years old right there in 1983, 20 years old on Ferguson unit. And that's what I looked like back then. Man, it still looked the same. Next picture. This is the picture of my back. A lot of people, again, they look at me and they think, oh man, I don't think this guy. Well, just you make up your own mind. Next picture. I had Jesus in my back. Now I have him in my heart. This is my wife. This is my second trip to prison. My second trip to prison. And now I have my wife, my kids, my 2 daughters. There's Lonnie and Andrea. This is Ellis Unit, 2001. That's where they used to have death row on Ellis Unit. Next picture. And I think, and this is another picture. My kids, you see how my kids are a little older now? I saw them, I was in jail that time for 6.5 years in prison. And this is at Segovia Unit right here. I spent 2 years there in Segovia Unit. Next picture, I think it's another picture of Segovia Unit. The next picture. There they are again. Next picture. And that's July 21st or 22nd, 2003. The day I came home. 18 years ago. Next picture. So it's been a journey, guys. It's been a journey. But I want to share my story with you because I want you to, those of you watching me online, those of you here, I want you to just grab a hold of this idea of life, because life is challenging, life is hard, life is full of hurt and pain. And sometimes we just want to give up, right? You know, my wife could have given up. Many of you sitting in here today have been at a point where you wanted to give up. I know you have. Well, I wanted to show you this picture because this is where me and my wife started. This is where my wife started. This is my wife, by the way. And she's at a church with our daughter. You see the little baby in her hands? That's our 6-month-old daughter. And the 4-year-old daughter standing right next to her. Can anybody tell me what's happening here? She's dedicating our kids to God. What that means is that in our church, if you have children, we believe that you should dedicate your kids to God. But what if you're hopeless? What if you see like, man, there's no future for me? What do you do then? Let me tell you. You dedicate your kids to God. And this is where my wife started when I robbed the store for one more hit on my daughter's 4th birthday. So let me tell you the story of how she got there 24 years ago. By the time I was 15 years old, I was already using drugs, popping pills, stealing cigarettes from my dad. I used to drink the last drinks from my dad's beers. By the time I was 16, I caught my first burglary of a building. Put me on probation, 7 years probation. By the time I was 17 years old, I caught another burglary of a building. And at the age of 17 years old, that same year, I caught my murder case. I got in a fight, I got in a jam, I stabbed a man, he died, and they charged me for murder. 17 years old. Mess of my life. I mean, your life can change in a heartbeat. 17 years old. Who's 17 here? You're 17? Oh, 17 years old. And I remember just, I didn't know what to do. I was confused. I was lost. I was able to get out on an appeal bond. Started fighting my case, but I was mad. I was confused with life. I was confused with why was the system the way it was. And at the age of 18 years old, I did my first aggravated robbery. Robbed a store. For that, they gave me 20 years. Then I tried to escape. And they gave me another 20 years. 18 years old. I went to prison. I remember going to prison, and you saw the picture there. I was in Ferguson unit. It was a crazy scene. I remember I had to fight. The most evil I ever seen was in prison. I had never experienced such evil. 3 years into my imprisonment, I thought I was bad. Started putting tattoos in my hand. I was making it, right? I was making it in prison. But 3 years upon my being in prison, right, they invited me to church. And I'm going to tell you this part of the story because it's important. I didn't want to go to church. I didn't think I needed church. I figured life was hard and I was going to be harder, right? That's just how it is. You get hard. But I remember going to this church, and I remember this preacher talking about changing your life, about you don't have to live the way you're living, that you can be forgiven. And I don't know till this day why I did it, but I remember giving my life to Jesus Christ. And remember, I'm telling you this story for a reason. This part of the story. And I remember I said, you know what, I'm going to change my life. I remember walking into back to my bunk, back to my block, back to my cell block and my homeboys with my Bible in my hand, right? You know, I'm going to change my life. And all my homeboys, ¿qué onda, Salinas? ¿A poco cristiano? Cálmate. And I remember thinking to myself, I told him, ¿sabes qué, carnal? Ya estuvo conmigo. Yo lo voy a poner a la chorcha. I'm going to church. So for the next 2.5 years, Peña, in prison, man, I was a devil stomping, devil chasing, Holy Ghost filled, on fire, tongue speaking Christian. I got beat up for talking about Jesus in prison. Serious. But something happened about 2.5 years, about a year before I got out of prison. Listen closely. Listen closely. I'm telling you the story for a reason. About a year before I got out of prison, something happened that I know now that happens to so many of us, especially in this world. I got confused. I got confused. Listen closely. I'm telling you. I got confused about God. Has anybody ever been confused about God? I got confused about, is it real? Who's right? Who's wrong? Is it the Jehovah's Witness? Is it the Baptists? Is it the Catholics? Is it the Muslims? Who is it? Who's right? And I remember I got confused, and I did what most people do. I said, I'll do my own thing. Who's ever thought that? I'll do my own thing. Me and Chuito. Right? That's why you have all these Mexicans running around with their crosses. Put a tattoo. Didn't you see mine? I have my tattooed Jesus. Because for some reason we want God. We know we need God. But somehow we can't reach God. So I remember I walked out of prison at the age of 24 years old. Listen closely. At the age of 24 years old, I walked out of prison, a backslidden, confused Christian. I don't want you to walk out of here confused tonight. And I remember within 3 months of my release, within 3 months of my release, I put a needle in my arm for the first time full of cocaine. I became a hardcore drug addict. I became one of those drug addicts that all I can think of is, where am I going to get my next hit? Does anybody know anybody like that? A couple of hands went up. Where am I going to get my next hit? That was the kind of drug addict I was. I was a good guy. I thought I was a good guy. Can you imagine that? I thought I was a good guy. I'd lie, I'd steal, I'd cheat. I'd work. I was a hard worker, right? There's a lot of hard-working drug addicts. I know a few. But I was always working and stealing and robbing and cheating just for one more hit. At the age of 26 years old, I get shot at. I get married to a young lady. She had no idea what she was getting herself into. No idea. Right, men? They have no idea what they're getting themselves into when they mess with you. At the age of 28 years old, I get shot at 9 times. I'm parole, by the way. By the time I was 30 years old, I came back from Houston. I was living in Houston where I got shot. Came back down to home, right? Trying to change. I knew about Jesus. I came back home with my pregnant wife. Now I'm over here stealing from my own family. By the time I was 33 years old, I had 2 daughters, the ones you just saw. I had a 6-month-old daughter and a 4-year-old daughter. And at the age of 33 years old, a week before my 34th birthday, I robbed a store for one more hit of cocaine on my daughter's 4th birthday. And let me tell you how that went. I was living with my mom now. I had no car, no truck, no tools, no job. Pawned everything. Loser drug addict. Loser father. Loser husband. I was just a loser. I just would have rather killed my worthless self. See, those of you that know a little bit about me, maybe you're starting to understand why I talk the way I talk. Why I have so much passion about for what I do. Because I know what I'm talking about. I know what hopelessness feels like. I know what it looks like. I remember it was Saturday night, January 17th. Saturday night. I'm going to write it down so I don't forget. Saturday night, January 18th. January 17th. See, that's why I wrote it down. 10 o'clock at night. 10 a.m. p.m. Where? Well, I was sad. So you don't have to be a rocket science to do what I do. Saturday night, 10 o'clock at night. Sunday is my daughter's 4th birthday, the following day. I'm sitting on my sofa, on my mother's sofa, watching TV. What do you think I was thinking? Wild guess. Where am I going to get my next hit? My wife comes out of the bedroom, and she says, watch the kids. I'm going to get in the shower. As soon as she gets in the shower, what do you think I did? But before I took off, Chavarria, I went and looked for her purse. Key words there. Took her last $20, and I took off. Walking, of course, I was a loser. Tell you, didn't even have a bike. Knocked on my dealer's window. Nobody home. 12 midnight. So I sat there like an idiot drug addict. That's what loser drug addicts do. Sit there till 4 o'clock in the morning. Till my drug dealer come. I remember him driving up. He's getting off his car. 4 o'clock in the morning, half drunk. And he throws me my $20 worth of cocaine. Because he knew who I was. He knew what I wanted. And he knew I didn't have money. And I remember picking up that cocaine off the floor. And I went to the back of the room that he let me use. And I remember fixing him up, syringe. And I remember putting on, those of you that don't know anything about drug addiction, just in case some of you don't know. Somebody that uses an IV, that uses a needle, you have to find your vein. I used to go like this, and I find a vein. And what you have to do is you have to push the needle in the vein, and you have to pull out the blood, make sure you hit the vein, and then you push the blood into the vein. And that's how someone like me, drug addict, gets high. If you don't hit the vein, you don't get high. Well, guess what happened that night? I missed. So now, and by the way, I'm not telling you this story because I'm proud of where I come from. So don't get the wrong, I got people say, hey, man, you ought to hear my story. I want to hear your story. Do you want to change your life? That's all I want to know. That's all I really want to know. Do you want to change your life? Some guy told me, man, I did 20 years straight. Well, good for you. You're going to have a hard time out here. So I'm not telling you this because I'm proud of where I come from. I'm telling you this to help you believe in the impossible. And I remember that night like it was yesterday. It was already the 18th. It was 4 o'clock in the morning. And I remember missing my vein. And I remember this rage just came over me like the Hulk. Just, I said, I'm going to get another hit, and I don't care who I have to kill. It's in the book. And I remember walking across town, and at 6 o'clock in the morning, on January 18th, 1997, I robbed the store for one more hit. I remember standing on that 7-Eleven store outside, and I know it was 6 o'clock in the morning because there was a clock right in front of the store. It was a digital clock, and it said 5:57, whatever it was. I don't remember what it was, but I remember saying to myself, I'm going to go into the store and rob the store right at 6. And here's what was going through my mind. Everything. How did I get here? All the messed up things I'd done. what I had just done. I had just robbed. I've been out all night, robbed the store. About to rob a store for one more hit. My daughter's birthday. Stole the last $20 from my wife. I was a loser father, a loser husband, a loser son. I was just a loser. And I thought to myself, if I go and rob this store and I get caught, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. So do I go in and rob the store, or I just go home? Well, you know what won out? I went in and robbed the store. I remember just 6 o'clock, I ran in there, give me your money. I stole a pack of Durells and $60. And I remember running to drug dealers. What I was going to do, because I knew who I was. I knew what it was. And I just wanted to kill my worthless self. I was just going to fill my syringe with a cocaine. I was just going to end it. That was my thought. But see, God had another plan. I remember by 8 o'clock that morning, I was in the city jail. In that cold cement city jail, crying out to God. God, help me. Help me. Now, I wasn't crying out to God to get out of prison. That's not what I was crying out to God for. Any idiot can do time, right? Any fool can pull a trigger. Anybody can put a needle in the arm. But to change your life, that's a monster. I said, God, help me change my life. I want to change my life. I don't care if I go to prison for the rest of my life, but help me change that monster in the mirror. I remember going to the county jail. I was there by noon, right? January 18th. It's my daughter's 4th birthday. I knew where she was because, let me stop right there. Let me put pause. Remember, I just got caught, city jail, 8 o'clock at morning. Just put pause. Stop right there. Let's go back just 2 months, okay? This is January. Go back about November, 96. And it's important. Listen, because some of you are sitting here, you think you're here by coincidence. No. You're here by divine appointment. Listen closely. 2 months before this happened, they had invited us to this little church. We're about to celebrate 30 years, by the way, in this church. But 24 years ago, my wife and I were invited to this little church called The Door. And there was people just like you and I, walking up to people. Hey, what's your name? Always trying to keep us coming back to church. You just want me to come to church. Yeah, that's what I want you to do. And I remember answering the altar call in that little church, that picture you saw. That was the little church we were in. And I remember I had my daughter in one hand and my wife in the other, and I was on my knees. I said, God, help me. Help me. I want to change my life. I couldn't. Well, he did. He heard my cry. And you know how I know he heard my cry? Because 2 months later, I was in the county jail and not dead in the streets. So listen, unpause. So it's 12 noon. My daughter's 4th birthday is the 18th. I know what's happening at the house. It's my daughter's 4th birthday. There's probably people from church there. And at 5 o'clock that afternoon, I made that infamous call that changed my life forever. You know, I don't know what it's going to take for you. I don't know what it's going to take for you. I don't know what it's going to take for you. But here's what it took for me to finally break this big, bad, no good, low-down snake in the grass drug addict. 5 o'clock that afternoon, I picked up that phone in the county jail, called my wife, babe. I said, I'm not coming home. They indicted me on a 1st-degree felony on a habitual indictment. was going to prison for the rest of my life. And I made that call. And I said, babe, I'm not coming home anymore. I'm not coming home anymore. I really messed up this time. And the next thing I heard was this little voice that said, Daddy, Daddy, today was my birthday, and you weren't here. Are you coming now? I already wanted to kill my worthless self. But that day, my whole world came crumbling down on me like you wouldn't believe. And there was nothing I could do. I was hopeless. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever been hopeless? Has your world ever come crumbling down on you? I remember thinking to myself, what have I done? What have I done? So I had to make a choice that I want you to make, a choice that I'm going to give you the opportunity to make tonight. I had to decide, do I kill my worthless self? Because that would have been so easy to do. Or do I choose? I'm telling you, it's a choice. Or do I choose to believe in the impossible? I remember going in front of the county, in front of the court. They indicted me on a habitual indictment, on a first-degree felony. They wanted to give me life in prison. In case those of you that don't know what a habitual indictment is, it's on a first-degree felony. That means that your sentencing starts at 25 years to life. And I remember Judge Leticia Hinojosa. I had my court-appointed attorney. Let me repeat that. I had a court-appointed attorney. And that blessed his heart. Let me say, I'm telling you, God is good. And my court-appointed attorney said, I'm going to try to help you. I'm going to try to get you a minimum sentence. A minimum sentence was 25 years. And when we were in the courtroom this first day, check this out. My attorney said, Your Honor, listen closely, this is powerful. Because if you've been asking God for a miracle, He's about to send you one. The attorney said, Your Honor, we're going to ask the court to consider a minimum sentence. As soon as she heard minimum sentence, Judge Leticia Hinojosa looked up and she said, Counselor, hold it right there. And here's what she said. She said, Mr. Salinas, step up to the bench. Those of you that don't know what that means, when you're talking to a judge and she wants to talk serious with you, she puts you right here in front of the bench. She picked up some papers, and here's what she said. She said, Mr. Salinas, you're on parole. I was on parole all this time, bro. 10 years. She said, Mr. Salinas, you're on parole? I said, yes, ma'am. And then she said this. She said, you went to prison for burglary of a building, burglary of a habitation, murder, aggravated robbery, escape, and now another aggravated robbery? And she says, and she turns to my attorney and says, and you want me to consider a minimum sentence? She says, it's going to be very difficult for you to convince me to even come close to a minimum sentence. And that's what I was facing 24 years ago. On my daughter's 4th birthday, I was hopeless. I remember my poor wife just, I don't know what she was thinking. But I started fighting. I started writing letters. I started praying. I started believing in God. I said, God, help me. I had made up my mind. I was going to change my life. Who's ever made up your mind you're going to change your life? But then you didn't know how. That was me. See, this is what these rooms are all about. I know how now. I can teach you. If you want to change your life. Because if you don't want to change your life, nothing I say will do you any good. Won't even matter. But if you want to change your life, I can help you. And I remember a year later, we walked into that courtroom again. Man, and here's what that judge, I don't know. She said, Mr. Salinas, a year later, 1 year later, she said, Mr. Salinas, I don't know why I'm going to do this. Who's ever been in front of a judge? Who knows that those are good words to hear? This is your lucky day. And she said, Mr. Salinas, I don't know why I'm going to do this. And then she told me, if I ever see you in my courtroom again, you know how they do it, right? If you, and she just let me have it. And then she said, I'm going to sentence you to 6.5 years. A miracle right before my eyes. I told you, if you've been asking God for a miracle, He just sent you one. A miracle. 6.5 years? What? I can do that, what? Sitting on the toilet. On the toilet. 6.5 years for a, how do you say it? Career criminal like me? That doesn't even make sense. 6.5 years. Listen closely. When I was 16 years old, they gave me 7 years. When I was 18 years old, they gave me 20 years. And then they gave me 20 more. And then they gave me 10. And here I am at the end of my criminal career. And the judge gives me 6.5 years. I don't know what you call that. I call that a miracle. 6.5 years. I said, I'm going to change my life. I didn't know how. I had no idea that it was even possible, but I remember scripture. And let me shoot you some scripture that used to go through my head. And I said, is it real? Could it be? Kind of like the people of Jesus' time. Is it real? Could it be? Jesus used to say, all things are possible to him who believes. With God, nothing shall be impossible. All things are possible to him who believes. And those things used to come to my head. And they used to go through my head. Man, is this possible? And I remember going back to prison. I said, I'm going to change my life. And here's one of my favorite parts. Remember getting to Garza West. Anybody recognize Garza West? And I remember walking into that cell for the first time. I was on fire. You got to understand. I mean, I was one happy camper in prison. I said, 6.5 years, I don't care if I do them all. It doesn't matter. I'm going home. And I did them all. Every single day. And I said, man, I was happy. I was happy. I walked into my little old, what do you call that? Chicken coop, whatever. And I remember this idiot comes up to me. He said, who are you running with? Who are you running with? I remember looking at him and thinking, listen, dude, I don't know what you're talking about and I don't care. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to the top. Listen, and for the next 6.5 years in prison, I started educating myself. And this is where the miracle comes. I started reading. I started learning. I started learning things like this. Successful living doesn't happen by chance. It only happens by choice. I started learning success and achievement isn't something you pursue, it's something you become. I started learning that God was real, that Jesus was alive, that he was a miracle worker, that he could change your life, that he would forgive me, and that I could be a new man. I remember going to the prison library. My life change started in a prison library, I tell people. See, you don't understand. I didn't just want to change my life. I wanted to soar. I wanted to go. I didn't just want to be just your average person. No, because I wasn't no average drug addict. I wanted to do something great. God said, you have greatness within you. I put it there. I believed it. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to start my own business. Start my own business, loser, drug addict. And tell me if this wasn't God. I started reading. About learning new words like personal development, success, fulfillment, dreams, vision. It's all in the Bible. I remember saying, let me find a book on business. Tell me if this wasn't God. I remember looking at it, it was orange. Picked it. Listen to the name of it. The Complete Idiot's Guide to Starting Your Own Business. Tell me if that wasn't God. I walked out of prison with a business plan, the name of the business that I have today. Very successful, by the way. From that little book in prison. And 18 years ago, at the age of 40 years old, 40, think about that for a minute. I walked out of prison for the last time. And that's the picture you see. Let me show you the picture of my family now. Anybody want to see that picture? My daughter was 6 months old, and the other daughter was 4 years old, Andrea and Lani. This was just last Christmas. In these rooms, I teach men what it means to be a man, what it takes to be a man. Most kids don't know what it means to be a man. A man is someone born male. Let's get that straight. Let me repeat it. A man is someone born male who rejects passivity, accepts responsibility, lives courageously, and then lives with the expectations of a greater reward. See, I didn't see this 20 years ago. This is my reward. This is a greater reward. Look at this. My two daughters, one on each side, you see her? That one over there was Andrea. She was 4 years old when I arrived at the store. This one over here was 6 months old. And now I'm carrying her baby. Look at that, my youngest grandson. My son Ozzy, my granddaughter, and our grandson my wife has. And these two bozos, you know, they're my son-in-laws. How does that happen? All because I chose. See, it's a choice that you can do, you can have, of believing in what? And you know why I know that? I know God made it that on purpose. Yeah, I know He did. That we have to believe. Because life will beat you down. It will beat you down to the ground and stomp on you. God knew that you were going to need faith for your life. Because life is cruel. Listen to this. And people are even more cruel. That's why we need God in our lives. Listen, I want you to bow your head with me tonight. I don't usually do this in these rooms. I don't usually pray for people. I'm always teaching in these rooms. But I want to give you the opportunity that I took 24 years ago to receive Jesus Christ into my life, to ask God to help me change my life, to help me be a better man, to help me be a man of God, to help me be a father, a husband, a leader. That's what I ask God. And He's giving me that. So as our heads are bowed and our eyes closed, I wonder if there's tonight anybody here, maybe you've never accepted Jesus Christ in your life. Maybe you need prayer tonight. Maybe you just need help believing in the impossible. I would count it an honor and a privilege to pray for you. If that's you, I want you to just do me a favor, just signify to God by raising up your hand that you would like me to pray for you. I'm not going to ask you to come up front. I see that hand, son. You can put it down. Anybody else? You want me to pray for you? Say, you know what? I want to receive Jesus Christ in my life tonight. I want God's forgiveness tonight. Maybe you need forgiveness and you know it. Maybe you're backslidden. You know about God. You've been told about God, but you've never really, you need to make a recommitment to God. If that's you, raise your hand. I see that hand, I see that hand. And just, we put nobody in the spot. I want us to all pray this prayer so my brother here, my friend here can pray the prayer with us. Say this prayer with me. Say, Father in heaven, thank you for your grace. I commit my life into your hands. I ask that you forgive me. Help me to change my life, to be a better woman, a better man. Help me, Lord, to believe in the impossible for my life. I believe in Jesus Christ, that you died for me and that you rose again and that you're coming back. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm going to give God praise. So I want to do two things. We normally, I want to pass around a donation bucket. Now, the reason I do this, because we're a self-supporting group. I don't make no money doing this. But if you believe in what we do, I always ask you to contribute $1, 25 cents. If you can. You don't have to, you're not, and we pass around a donation bucket for that because starting Monday, I'm going back into the prison, by the way. Yeah, I'm going back into the prison. But this time I'm walking out. I'm going to go back into the prison. And I'm going to start going over there, helping men in there. I'm going back into the parole office so that people, men that are coming out of parole can come to this room and find hope. Because we have a whole system, a whole program. It's called church. Spiritual enrichment for your life. I want to show you one more picture. By the way, anybody have any questions? Want to ask me anything? Anybody want to ask me anything? You want to know something, that you missed something, that maybe something came to your mind. About 8 years ago, I don't know what it was. Because one of the things that I often wondered is, why did this judge give me 6.5 years? Why did she do that? I wanted to ask her. That was one of my dreams. So one day ask that judge, why did you give me 6.5 years? Well, I had the opportunity to do that. About 6 years ago, I don't know how long ago, 6, 8, I don't remember. We found her, my sister found her. She was living here in Edinburgh. And we made an appointment with her. She was an attorney. And we sat down. She had no idea who I was. I was sitting right here. My wife was here. My sister was here. And the judge was over there. And I shared the story I just shared with you. She couldn't believe her ears. Blew her away. I asked her, why did you only give me 6.5 years? See, I wanted to let her know that she didn't make a mistake. And she said, I don't know. Let me introduce you to Leticia Hinojosa. Uh-oh, wrong picture. Judge Leticia Hinojosa. We had a rally for Choose the Change, and she came. She spoke. I couldn't believe it. Can you tell? The judge that sentenced me 6.5 or 24 years ago. See, guys, so the story I just told you is why I do what I do. This is why I do what I do. This is why I'm so passionate about what I do. This is why I know that I can help you. And everywhere I go, I hear people telling me their stories and their testimonies, and they did this and they did that, and they got shot at so much time. And I always end with the last question I ask them, and I just say, do you want to change your life? Because that's all I really want to know. Because what we've done is easy. That's easy stuff. Any idiot can do drugs. Any fool, right, can do time. Anybody can pull a trigger. I love saying that. But to change your life, that is a process. And that's what I teach in these rooms. A process of change. And it starts with God. Hopes and dreams. You got that inside of you? We can move forward. I can teach you the things you need to know and how to make your life better. Yeah? So thank you guys again. I have books, by the way. If you decided to give more than $10, I'll give you one. But other than that, that's all I have. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching us online. We're here every single Thursday at 7 p.m. Please like us on Facebook, like us on YouTube. And if you believe in what we do, give to the Choose to Change Foundation. That's all I have, guys. Thank you. Amen.